There is a story of a grandfather who is teaching his grandson about life. The grandfather says to the grandson, "A fight is going on inside of me. It is a terrible fight between two wolves. One wolf is evil. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, pride. The other wolf is good. He is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control." The grandfather said to the grandson, "This same fight is going on inside of you and inside of every other person." The grandson thinks about it for a minute, then asks his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The grandfather simply replies, "The one you feed." Jesus' image today of the wheat and the weeds reminded me of this secular parable. Just as the grandfather invites the grandson to ask himself, "Which wolf am I feeding?" we have to ask ourselves, am I watering the weeds or the wheat? The weakness of that story about the two wolves, though, is that it makes it seem like the two wolves are equal. What becomes clear by listening to the other parables that Jesus tells today is that the weeds cannot compare to the wheat. We are used to, in our secular media, seeing movie after movie and story after story about good versus evil. Whether it is light versus dark, or Jedi versus Sith, Harry versus Voldemort, Shield versus Hydra. Good versus evil is one of those ubiquitous stories. It's everywhere. But very often it seems that good is equal to evil, that they are equally matched, and it's going to be a fight to the end to figure out who will win. Problem with that, when we apply that to the biblical good versus evil story, is that evil has already lost. Jesus won the victory on the cross. Satan is a loser. And so when he sows these weeds, he's not offering things that are equal in power to the wheat. No, what do weeds do? Weeds can only take. They steal the water and nutrients from desirable plants. At best, weeds stunt growth. At worst, they kill. In a garden, weeds, if they're allowed to grow too tall, will shade the more desirable plants, robbing them of sunlight and causing them to wither and die. Wheat does not take. The good seed that our Lord sows does not take. Those fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, they receive, but they do not take. Our Lord compares the kingdom to a mustard seed because from that tiny seed, abundance comes. He compares the kingdom to yeast because from a little bit of yeast, the entire loaf is leavened. Weeds cannot compare to wheat. The seed sown by the evil one does not compare to the seed sown by our Lord. But what's true about that story of the two wolves is that we do, each of us, have within us good and evil, both wheat and weeds. And we do have a choice to water or feed one or the other. And with each decision, each moral choice we make, we become more like an angel or more like a demon. The choice for us is, which will we water? Which will we feed? Our Lord comes to us in the teachings of the church, in the sacraments, to strengthen us in this journey. He has already saved us. He has already won the victory. It is ours to claim that victory, to water the wheat, to allow that mustard seed to grow, to allow His leaven, His yeast, to leaven our hearts. I remember my first confession. You might remember that I came into the church as an adult, and so I was about 22 years old, 22 or 23, when I had my first confession. And I remember when I was doing the examination of conscience before that first confession, I thought, this is awesome. I'm going to get to say all these things, and I'll never do them again. Not quite. Then I remember a confession that I had right before I entered seminary. And I said, man, this is great. I'm going to go to seminary, and I'm going to get super holy. And by the time I'm a priest, I'm going to be so saintly. Still confessing the same stuff. I remember a confession I had right before I was ordained a priest. And I said to my confessor, I kind of thought I'd be a little farther along. My confessor, a good priest, just looked at me, smiled, and said, the only good thing about sin in the life of a priest is that it makes us more merciful to the sinners we walk with. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We all have wheat and weeds within us. The church is made up of saints and sinners. A whole bunch of sinners, very few saints. Which one am I watering? Which wolf am I feeding? Am I cultivating weeds of lust, gluttony, greed, slothfulness, wrath, envy, pride? In my interactions with others, my interactions online, in my interactions with my family, at work, am I feeding that evil wolf? Am I watering those weeds? Or am I cultivating the wheat, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control? When I come to Mass and I receive the living wheat of the Eucharist, and then when I go back out into the world, do I act like I'm filled with that wheat? Am I leaven for the world, or am I a weed? Just like all the other weeds in our world. Am I a source of healing for our world, or am I part of the problem? When I talk about the problems of this world, do I sound like everybody else? Or do I sound like one who's been fed with living bread? One who is a disciple, a follower of the one who sows good seed in our hearts? Am I a mustard seed that reproduces in abundance? Or am I a weed, all about me, my own, getting mine, take and take and take? Let us water the wheat. Let us feed that good wolf. And let us ask the Lord in His wisdom and in His justice and in His mercy to clear the weeds in our hearts, the weeds in our church, the weeds in our world. And then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears ought to hear.